Hi, my name is Ahmed Bedir. It's spelled A-H-M-E-D, and the last name is B-E-D-I-E-R. I'm the president of United Voices for America. And reacting to the the hearing that took place this morning, obviously this was a special type of hearing that the expectation was not that there was going to be any dismissal necessarily today. However, but in the greater context of this trial, in trials you have to have evidence to convict people, and I think ultimately that's what the jury is going to be looking for. And so far the government has failed to provide real evidence, hard evidence, that links Noor Salman to the crimes of Omar Mateen. They've established Omar Mateen is a monster that killed those individuals. No one is denying that. But when it comes to evidence that Noor Salman participated, the evidence is not there. A lot of it just relies on this one statement that was written by an agent named Enriquez. It was not written by Noor Salman. It was written by Agent Enriquez, that they are saying that this is the statement of Noor Salman, which parts of that statement we learned yesterday is now the investigators themselves determined that parts of that statement is in fact false. It did not happen that she cased the Pulse nightclub. So if portions of that statement have already been proven to be false just within days of the shooting itself, then what's to say that the entire statement is false? And if there's no statement, if the jury finds that the statement is completely false, then there's no case. Everything else, all the other activities, just tends, it looks like that the government is throwing as much dirt as they can on Noor Salman and hoping something sticks. All the other activities have reasonable explanations. People go shopping. You know, when you're married to somebody, you go places together as a family. And I think they're trying to interpret all these different activities of going to family outings with not only Omar Mateen, but also her in-laws as some sort of sinister activities. Going to Walmart is a normal activity that all couples do. Going to different locations around town, eating at restaurants, driving to places. And I think what was established so far is that her just being present in places with her husband does not necessarily mean she's fully aware of what her husband was up to. So we're continuing to have concerns about how this is moving forward. And you know, there was a point that was made earlier today about what did the grand jury actually see when they decided to indict? Were they also deceived by the false information in the statement? Again, within a few days of the actual shooting, they knew portions of that statement, especially the casing of the Pulse nightclub, did not happen. Yet they still included it when she was arrested seven months later. Did they present that evidence as evidence to the grand jury when they secured the indictment? That proceeding is not public, so we don't necessarily know. But again, I think the government's case is in trouble. There's no real hard evidence so far. They've rested their case. They're not introducing any new evidence, and so far they have not provided hard evidence to link Noor Salman to this case. And I think people are wondering, why is she even in jail? Why is she being prosecuted? In part based on false evidence that they knew to be false. And I think that's the big story here, is that the judge himself scolded them for basically, in a way, misleading him with this false evidence. So thank you very much. Are there any questions for me before I turn it over to Susan? Thanks.
Hi. On behalf of Noor Salman's family, after yesterday's hearing, they're very upset that Noor continues to be held in jail when much of the evidence that was presented for the judge to revoke her bond from California was false. And we wish the judge would reconsider bond, even though the jury's going to hear the case soon, but they feel she's been wrongly held in jail for 1.5 years away from her young son and her family because of false evidence presented by the government.
Susan, why wasn't it brought up today at the hearing?
The judge said yesterday that he would deny the bond hearing in discussion, but that he would allow them to file a motion to consider bond, and they're working on that motion.
How long do you think it'll be?
I don't know. The judge has hearings at 3 o'clock, and they've got jury instructions now after lunch, so we'll see what happens.
What's your reaction to him denying
You know, it is very common for the defense to file a motion, a Rule 29 motion for summary judgment, and because the hearing is seen in the best light for the government. In other words, everything that we heard today in court was, if you see the government's case in the best possible light, what would you do? And the judge decided that in the best possible light, he was going to deny that motion. It's not a surprise at all. It's just a common occurrence. We do wish that he had thrown out some of the charges, but we understand that he's just doing his job, and he even stated in the beginning of the hearing that he had to look at this hearing in the best evidence, in the best light for the government. But we think this trial is ridiculous. She should have never been charged. She's a scapegoat for what Omar Mateen did. The FBI needed somebody to blame. She was out, and they followed her around for 7 months before they decided to arrest and charge her. And we just feel like this case is gone out of control. This poor woman is being held responsible. There are so many other cases around the country where the family members and spouses of shooters and bombers have not been held responsible. In this one case where there's a Muslim woman, she's in federal court and she's being held in jail away from her family. It's really a tragedy.
Susan, your reaction to the judge this morning wanting the government to lay out concisely the evidence that they have against Salman alone. Your reaction to that, and why do you think that's going to be important going into this afternoon with jury instructions?
Well, I think that because he mentioned that there are no interrogatories on the verdict form. Generally, a verdict form with this kind of thing where the jurors have to find certain offenses occurred would include a list of those offenses, and the jury would have to mark what they believe occurred, but they don't have to in this case. So he wanted to be sure that all of the points that the government is going to make will fall under the statute of aiding and abetting, and they don't make any arguments outside of that. So the jury doesn't take into consideration anything that isn't a part of the statute.
How important do you think that's going to be this afternoon?
Jury instructions are incredibly important. This is a complicated case because it's a circumstantial case. They don't have any real evidence against her. They don't have any concrete evidence against her. And so how the jury is instructed to apply the law to the case is going to be extremely important.
How do you think they're going to apply it?
It is my hope, our hope, that they apply the law fairly to the evidence. But this is Orlando. Noor Salman asked for the case to be moved outside of Orlando because emotions are very high. This is where it occurred. Emotions are still very high. You can see it on social media. And the judge refused. So we can only hope that these 18 people will take it very seriously and really look at the evidence, apply the law, and find her not guilty. Thanks. Somebody asked me.